Hello and welcome. A huge celebration this year. It's 10 years since the PCA welcomed female members. I'm joined by three fellow players from 2011, two still at the top of their game playing for their country, Heather Knight and Anya Shrubsole, and the new PCA President, who has many accolades herself, both playing but also in her coaching career, Charlotte Edwards. Welcome to you all. Lottie, I'll start with you. Can you just take it back to the first meeting with the PCA, and did you envisage then what the next 10 years would bring?
Probably not. I mean, it was, a brief meeting we had with Jason Ratcliffe and Angus Porter back in 2011. And, I'd had a few dealings with the PCA at that point. We'd been to the PCA dinner a number of times, but it was the first time really we understood what the PCA could do for the players, and obviously that really sort of hit home, I guess, in 2014 when we became professional cricketers. So we've been on certainly a really important journey with the PCA, and I think it's going to get even more important now with the amount of members that are female now, which I think is absolutely fantastic with the new 41 members in the last 12 months. So it's a really exciting time, and looking forward to seeing what the PCA can do for women's cricket.
Heather, Anya, have you noticed a huge difference in the way the game has moved forwards, certainly with the PCA coming on board as well?
Oh, it's unrecognisable, isn't it? Since I made my debut 11 years ago, the way it's changed, the way it's progressed. And the PCA have been a huge part of that. I think their support certainly has grown massively in the last couple of years. I think they've been a lot more active in terms of actually pushing the women's game forward, supporting us, obviously supporting the 41 new members, and just helping with little things like supporting us through obviously what was a tough time last year, talking about pay cuts, things like that. And we've just recently had the first ever England Women's PCA personal development and welfare manager. So things feel like they're progressing all the time, and the PCA have been a huge part of that, and they're increasing their support all the time, which is great.
Anya?
Yeah, I just echo everything that the two of them have said already. The support has been, but probably only at the start really of how much we can get out of the relationship game and the PCA. I guess about keep pushing that relationship, and it's been absolutely massive for us. And but I think there's also still probably quite a long way to go as well.
Have you found your new role as PCA President? Obviously, first ever female.
Yeah, I mean, it came as a bit of a surprise, if I'm honest, and I'm really enjoying it. I think just realising I'm understanding what the PCA does for the players, I think is more importantly, and that's why I probably wanted to get involved with the role, because I think seeing the new 41 players being directly involved with them day in, day out, I wanted to see what support, and I wanted to know more about the PCA and what they could offer the players, and it's incredible what they can do for the players. And I've learned a lot in the 3 months that I've been president, which has been which is great. And like Anya said, I think still really understanding what they can do and what support they're giving constantly. And like you said, with the new PDW, Sophie, she's done a fantastic job. Had a few chats with her and what she can offer players as well, which I think is incredibly important, especially with the new contracts.
Yeah, I guess those girls coming in, they talk about transitioning into cricket, don't they? And there's still the players that aren't involved as well, and the support the PCA can give, I guess, with getting those players to do stuff outside of cricket, because they have a little bit more time to focus on themselves and personal development and work out what they might want to do either alongside cricket or after cricket. So that's cool. Also, meant to ask you, when you played, right, you always said you were going to do a marathon. Are you now going to do a marathon for the PCA?
Well, I'm actually considering the bike ride, but actually I'll probably be in Australia when the bike ride's on this year. So I did seriously consider it, and Luke can vouch for me on that one. But yeah, that learning about that and what the fun can do for players is just incredible. And yeah, I will consider it, but I did try and run a few weeks ago and it didn't go particularly well, so I'll probably stay on the bike, I think, or swim. It's probably the safest bet for me right now.
Okay, here's an interesting one actually, because I'm going to chat to some of the new professional players tomorrow. Anya, you'd be involved in that as well. So the process from going from being amateur or part-time cricketers to full-time. So looking back to 2014 and how suddenly we were professional cricketers overnight and how things changed for us. So it'd be good to get your perspectives on that, how you think the transition, I guess, went, and some good things and some challenges as well that came with that.
I think the thing I remember the most is I'm pretty sure we played India almost after turning professional, and we obviously lost that match. And I remember seeing everything as suddenly professional players versus amateur players, and the amateurs won, and basically this expectation that because we'd become professional, that suddenly overnight we were going to be world beaters, and that's just not how it works. If tomorrow someone got paid way more to do the same job, they're not going to be immediately 10 times they've been paid more. And I felt like there was that real expectation that suddenly we were going to be X amount better, just professional, and a lack of understanding that process still takes time. So that would be the biggest thing, that actually probably still a year down the line, maybe 2 years, that you see the real benefit of it. But yeah, that's the thing I remember the clearest, is just that expectation went, for us, felt like it just went through the roof, quite literally overnight.
Yeah, the judgment changed straight away. I think probably the pressure we put on ourselves as well, going from not being paid to do your job to being paid to be a cricketer, and suddenly your mortgage is reliant on the fact that you can score runs and take wickets. And I think the pressure, and different people dealt with it in different ways, some better than others probably, but the pressure to then have to perform to keep your contract, to be successful, I guess, was very different, how it changed, like Anya said, overnight.
Yeah, and I think that process probably helped me going through that, and now going into the regional structure, seeing these girls who are, the 5 pros, and knowing exactly what they're going through. They are having exactly the same feelings as we did when, at a slightly different level, but it's still the same. Like you say, 1 year contract, will I get another one next year? The pressure is on those players to perform well in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy. So, and that's where the PCA can, support these players, as you said, Heather, about, making sure that they're doing stuff away from cricket. That's one thing I realised, there wasn't enough balance in our lives when we first became professionals. We were training every day at Loughborough. It was like, the more we trained, the better we got. Well, it's not like that. You actually get, you're better off just training for 3 hours a day rather than felt like 8 at times. So I've learned so much into taking into my coaching now that has helped me, and hopefully will help these new 41 players, or certainly the 5 we've got at the Vipers. Through this, it's a transition, isn't it, from becoming these girls didn't get paid any money 12 months ago to now being paid quite well to play domestic cricket, which, we all wanted that a number of years ago, and it's finally happened, and now we're reaping the rewards, and hopefully we'll see that over the next few weeks in the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy. Yeah,
I'm really excited to see how everyone goes, actually. I think, having seen some of the girls that have been able to train as professionals all winter, just seeing how much they've improved, how physically fit they are, and how their skill level's just gone through the roof. So it's going to be a really exciting start to the season, I think. I think you're right about the amount we wanted to train. I think when you get made professional, you're so desperate to make the most of the opportunity and do as much as you can. You almost have to learn that balance between rest and actually what's overtraining. Am I doing too much? So I think those girls are going through that transition now, which is obviously what we kind of went through back in 2014, and even before that. I remember our Chance to Shine days when we used to go to Buckingham and get flogged, going from school to school, club to club, and then trying to fit in our training at 6, 7 at night down at Wokingham Cricket Club. That was definitely not a lot of balance in that before we were professional either. So
don't worry, I remind the girls on a daily basis that I used to have to work full time and play for England, but there you go.
Back in my day.
Do you find that with the youngsters coming in, that I suppose it's different for them, that they're entering a world where everything is completely different from when you first started, Lottie? I mean, you wore a skirt. You were wearing a skirt to play cricket back in the day, and now it's, you know, people are getting paid, not necessarily knowing the hardship that players went through 20, 30 years ago, on this journey. Is it different for the players now, and do you think that they sometimes maybe take it for granted?
Yeah, but it's not their fault, and I think that's what we have to remember as coaches and people who are managing these players, that it's not their fault. They've been brought up in this era where, you know, it's incredibly exciting, to think, I handed out some caps the other day to our Vipers Academy, and they've got all their kit, and some of our young players are now getting paid to play in the Vipers. I think it's just educating them. It's keeping their feet firmly on the ground, I think, is something that probably I'm quite good at. But I don't certainly go, back in my day, we didn't used to do this and do that. It's changed, and it's changed for the better. And I think we've all just got to be on this journey together and help supporting the players and challenging the players when we need to. I think that's really important. And reminding them every now and then that they are very lucky. And, we've trained at Arundel Castle today, my most beautiful grounds in the world. And, I feel very lucky to be in the position I'm in, and I know the players are very lucky. So yeah, we're on an incredible journey, and one, we're all looking forward to and being part of over the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some significant changes over time. Great to be in the position we are, but we as women are always sort of taught to be grateful for everything that we've got and the position that we're in now. But there's still obviously a long way to go to reach equity. How hard is it to get the balance? So I'll come to you on that one, Anya.
I think it is hard, and I think that's something that we're still, definitely as an England squad, we're still working through, and it's a hard balance, because of course I'm someone as a person, I want to be grateful, that's kind of go-to, but it's also, like you say, being able to not just, kind of settle. And I feel like it's kind of up to us a little bit at the top to really try and push that on, because then it will obviously filter all the way through. So like you said, it's a really tricky balance, and it's possibly for the people who have, all four of us who played before it was professional or whatever, so we're just thinking, oh, this is still amazing, like, as it is. And sometimes actually the younger ones who don't have all that, who can maybe help push a little.
Heather, do you feel the same? Do you feel that sort of added responsibility to try and take it forwards?
Yeah, 100%. And I think now there's a lot more receptive ears to what we're trying to say. So I think as players, we're certainly more willing to ask for things and say when things aren't quite right or aren't quite equal. And I think the PCA have been a huge part of that as well, and can really help the players in terms of having those difficult conversations that sometimes need to be had with the ECB or whoever it might be, and trying to champion women's cricket and push the game forward. And I've certainly become more comfortable being vocal as I've gone along. Sort of early in my career, I was definitely just grateful to be a professional cricketer and do something I love. And I think as I've got a little bit older and probably not wiser, but definitely older, I've kind of wanted to be a bit more vocal and look at the wider game and how I can help move things forward and try and leave it in a better place than when I started.
Like, what about you? Do you see a shift in players and them wanting to kind of strive for more?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just getting that balance, isn't it? Championing for the right things and even small things like, just being we're involved at the Aegeus Bowl, just having the equal amount of opportunity to train at that ground is a big thing. And then that's something I'm prepared to speak up about. The equal pay stuff, I think we've got a long way to go there. I think until we can, demand crowds of 30,000 at each of our games, then we've got to be prepared to the girls are paid well to do what they do. So I think we've got to just that's going to take time, but I think we can always keep championing that area. But I think the game's in a really good place. I think, hopefully, the next 5 years we'll see 15 domestic players in each of the regions contracted. I think that's got to be the ultimate goal, because ultimately we want to have as many girls and competing for England spots. I'm sure Heather and Anya want that, and we want to be strong, the England team to be strong for a long time. And we go to Australia, we see what they're doing, we've got to get closer to that, because ultimately they're leading the way in that area in terms of domestic cricket, and obviously the Australian team at the moment have been quite dominant.
Yeah, I think on that lot, I think we're starting to see that depth already, even though it's only been a year since those girls, not even a year, that those girls got made professional, the domestic girls. And we've had a few England A games up at Loughborough, and some of the girls have really impressed me, and they look like proper professional cricketers. And like you say, it's going to be so key for England moving forward to have that real pool of players that are pushing each other, that are pushing the standards, and ultimately contributing to moving the England team forward.
There's so many different strands to progress, I suppose. And one thing that EWPP, which was set up to basically look at all the different areas of the professional game and the England players in particular, look at their provisions. It's not just about equal pay, it's being, treated the same as the men. And I mean, for me, it's been significant just learning more about what the differences are. You mentioned Australia. Everyone's always looking at Australia and the sort of provisions that they have within their setup, things like maternity leave and pay going forwards. These are all things that I guess in this world where we're sort of stepping into it on our own, it requires a lot of conversation, a lot of thought. And essentially, I think what hasn't happened previously is because people didn't really know what was important, and we're now finding out what is important, which is great. So that's why it's so good that the England Women's Player Partnership has been set up, and it was set up in 2017. But where would you like to see the game go? What would you like to see in the next 5 years happen for the England women and these new domestic professional players? Heather?
Well, for the England team, I guess a couple of trophies next year would be nice, and success always breeds success, doesn't it, and gets more people interested in and invested in the game. So that's obviously a big goal of us as a team. And I think in terms of the EWPP, I think having seen it expand in the last 6 months, so 3 more players coming on the board and having that player input is really, really important, I think. And also having a few external voices like Fraser Gibney, who's come on board in terms of marketing the team and how we want to be perceived to the public and how we want to grow that has been really important. But I think the point Lottie made about making the domestic game fully professional, that's got to be a massive goal moving forward in the next, well, hopefully 5 years. There hopefully will be the opportunity to have that fully professional. And I think although I see why they've done it, there are slight issues when it comes to having half of the team professional, half not. And ultimately the goal's got to be to have everyone professional and have a really strong domestic league that's going to create really good competition and create players that are going to be fit to play for England as soon as they get called up. Because previously in the past, they've probably needed a little bit of time around the squad and time to get used to being a pro and to get used to playing at that level. So, I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me for the next 5 years is for the domestic structure to be fully professional. I think we've seen the difference it's made in 12 months. And it is going to become harder with the pros, the 5 pros we've got, going to probably move away from the wider squads, and we're trying to train and give them the equal amount of time, but some of these girls are having to work, some of them at universities. There's so many other challenges we've got, and I feel in 2 years' time that could become an issue. It's all really lovely at the moment because everyone's doing it for the first time, but I can see a challenge become in that area. So that would be the biggest step, I think, for women's cricket in this country. And as we want, the England team to continue to keep being successful and have that pool of players to pick from, which is already getting bigger, like Heather said, within the last 12 months. So imagine, another 8 players, 10 players put on professional contracts in each region would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I look at all these things, and it's amazing to be in broadcast where you can kind of have this overriding sense that we are moving the game forwards, and great to have the visibility, and it all is all connected to each other, I suppose. But where I'd like to see the game grow even more off the field is in terms of the players. You're all well known now on the back of the World Cup win and being able to be seen on television, on Sky, on BBC. There is a real drive to want to see more women's sport, and I think the numbers are rising when it comes to visibility on television, on radio, but also in the grounds. And so I think that's where commercial sponsors will be interested in the next sort of 2-3 years. I think there's going to be a massive boom coming, and that's certainly one aspect of the women's game that I think could go to another level, and players being paid more, which brings me to equal pay. What do you think? What do you think the limitations are at the moment, Lottie? And how long is it realistic? Do you see in your lifetime there will be equal pay for men and women?
I don't know. I've said I didn't think a lot of things would happen in my lifetime, and they have. So yeah, hopefully, and hopefully the game will just become, more popular to many people. And I think the 100's going to do a lot for that in this country. I really do. I think over the next sort of few years, with the visibility of the 100 and how it's being positioned, I think is really important. And the fact that the first game of the 100 is going to be a women's game, I think was a massive statement from the ECB. So yeah, I think that's certainly an area we can grow women's cricket. I don't know if it will be in my lifetime, but I think we want all I want to see is the girls paid really well for what they do. I think commercially, you're right. We need to probably attract more money to the game for it to be financially viable, probably for the boards. But but that will only come with, I guess, greater media interest and obviously the girls playing really good cricket on the field, which I'm absolutely certain the game's just going to take off with, the amount of investment now there is in the game, certainly in this country.
Yeah, I agree with Lottie. I think you're right on the fact that the next step is to be self-sufficient and to bring in our own money, and obviously that's commercially, excuse me, and also getting people into the grounds. And I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? We talk about tipping points a lot as well. Every next new thing seems to be the tipping point, but I think ultimately it's about visibility, getting people interested in the game, being able to create our own income stream and have enough people coming to watch, and for companies to invest in us. And I think to get to that point, you have to invest quite a lot. The men's game's been professional for so much longer, and it's had that historic investment, which is so important to get it out there. You saw with the 2017 World Cup final, the way it was marketed was like a men's World Cup final, and you saw the results with the amount of people that watched it, and obviously sell out of Lords, how many million people watch around the world. So I think to get to that point, the investment has to be big to then get the returns back.
Anya, what would you like to see more of from the PCA?
There isn't necessarily anything I think off the top of my head is more. I think it's just continuing to really work with and to really push whatever we can, because people they've got contacts and things like that really I guess help the women's game, and that's not to say they're not doing it, they absolutely are, but I guess we're still probably quite naive from a commercial point of view for kind of individual players from what they can do commercially or whatever, we're probably still quite naive. We're still, I guess, about using the network that they have as well to really help the women's game, because I think they can do a huge amount commercially with the ECB and all of those.
And what about player welfare as well? I suppose you talked about this transitional phase for the domestic players. Mental health has become a lot more prominent in the last few years, and even more important to have that support for the players, because we live in a time where I guess everyone's being judged, social media, but it has become a lot more talked about, and people are able to get that support where they need it. Is that something you think has been beneficial from the Players Association, having that welfare support?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I think the times we're living in as well, excuse me, with COVID, and obviously we've been so lucky we've been able to play international cricket, but it's been in a very dystopian bubble environment, which has been hard for everyone involved, I think, and making sure the players are looked after and their welfare is put first has been really key, I think, and the PCA have been great in terms of that, in terms of getting the things in place that the players need, and just being there if someone needs to chat to them has been great. And there's definitely strides I think we can make. You mentioned the maternity policy earlier in the call, Isha. I think that's an important area, and the women's game is very different to the men's, and we can't just impose what the men do on our game, because it's very different, and the problems are different in terms of obviously we're female. So I think that's an area that we can keep pushing forward on, and will be a big benefit for the players moving forward.
Well, it keeps players playing longer, I guess. The idea that they can start a family and then maybe come back, as we've seen with Amy Satterthwaite and Leah Tahuhu in New Zealand, and there is that option now, which a lot of players retired, I suppose, mid-20s because they wanted to stop and go on and have a family. So it's amazing that could potentially be an option for them.
On that, Ish, obviously you didn't retire to have kids, but if we were fully professional back when you retired, I think you were 26, weren't you?
Mm.
Would you have carried on, do you think? Or would you...
That's a really tough question.
I know it is. It's a horrible one, sorry, but I'm interested.
I don't know. I'm not sure. No regrets here.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, everyone retires for different reasons, and certainly being able to have that support, being able to have those conversations, I think definitely would have made it a harder decision. Because there is the option to obviously earn a living and to actually make it your career. So it's just a different world that we live in now. These youngsters have that option, which is fantastic. I personally would love to see some of the older players that have left the game come back into the game. We've got Catherine Brunt playing at the age of 36. It's amazing. So a lot of the players that have kind of gone off to have different lives or go into admin or coaching or whatever, that's one thing that you probably have noticed on the club and the county scene, is that there's maybe a lot more youngsters playing, and certainly when we started, there were a lot of older girls, sort of 20 to 30 year olds that you could learn from, but I don't really see that as much anymore.
Is this you announcing a comeback, Ish?
No.
I think she's one of the
definitely not.
I need an outspring bowler, actually. She's talking about it.
I had a bowler at Regent's Park the other day. It was not coming out well.
Okay. We'll put that to bed then. No, I think you're absolutely right. It's very young, certainly at county level. I mean, I was watching some of the county T20s and they're just so young. And you're right. When we were growing up, we had lots of older players to learn from or play with. I certainly did when I was started to play, and I think they really miss that now. And I'm hoping, as a result of the contracts that are around now, that players will play for longer. Players will, help the youngsters more. And I think we want more experienced people playing the game and not written off by the time they're 23, which I think previously used to happen, and people used to then just give up and go and find a career. Whereas now you've seen girls at 26 being given a new lease of life, which is so, it's so lovely to see. And because we're working with them day in, day out, you can see how appreciative they are of the new contracts, and they're probably more mature now to deal with those contracts as well. So it's definitely changing, but I'd love to see, like you said, more older players. So Ish, if you want to make your comeback, there's a spot down at the Aegeus Bowl for you.
Enid's still going at 80, isn't she? So let's hope for a all.
Well, it's all down to people like her and those that have gone before that have been able to get us to this point. So she should be absolutely celebrated, and yourself, Lottie. What are you hoping to implement? What are you hoping to see happen in the next couple of years, including the golf day?
Yeah, the golf day is high on the agenda. We're just trying to find a date for the England women to be available for it. No, I mean, I was obviously incredibly honoured to be asked to do the role, and, in quite a challenging time for the game, but an important time for the game as well, not just for the women, but for the men's game. And I think it's, obviously with my women's cricket hat on, I just think, that this time for those 41 new members, the support we can give them, the education we can give them, and give them the best possible chance of succeeding as a professional cricketer is obviously paramount to me. And also the transition out of the game. I think there is going to be financial cutbacks. I don't know anything, but you can only think there's going to be, and helping the male professional players as well. Having those contracts that potentially are going to get less in most counties, and helping them and how we support them. And then the excitement of the 100 and all that comes with that. I think there's so much to be excited about. Cricket at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to that and seeing how hopefully the 100 can change the game in this country. Not that it needs to be changed that much, but I think we want to see more people watching it from different backgrounds, and hopefully more families getting involved.
Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, technical difficulties aside, and the last minute call up, Anya. But thank you very much. Here's to another 10 years